So to continue with 2 Peter 1:9, and what it is telling us is that if we follow the Lord's leading, if we listen to this inner Christ, just as we do our conscience, we can bring about a change, which can be likened to a chemical reaction or a phosphorescence within our souls. Just as I mentioned in my Son of God video, taking simple science, a simple scientific principle, and transforming it into a spiritual truth. And this phosphorescence can be seen even in a lightning bug, or if you will, a firefly, because when the chemical within their tails comes in contact with oxygen, it has this reaction and it gives off light. This is what was being spoken of in 2 Peter 1:9. If we follow that light, even as it's shining into this darkness of our soul, and we follow its leading, we can have this change within us. We become enlightened. The day dawns within our hearts. And this was what was originally spoken in the text. However, when Jerome took the Greek text and he was translating it into the Latin Vulgate, rather than doing a literal translation of the word into Latin, he chose the word for the planet Venus, which is Lucifer. Of course, now the Christians came along to translate this, and following the leading of the Latin Vulgate rather than the Greek text, because for a long time people thought that the Greek text was written in some kind of a Holy Ghost language. They didn't understand all the words. There are still words there that to this day that are not understood properly as to what they really mean. And so they stuck with the Latin Vulgate's word Lucifer. But they're already teaching people that Lucifer is the devil, so they certainly couldn't put that in this verse. So they put the definition of the word Lucifer, which is the day star, or the planet Venus, into the text. Thus the text says, the day star arising in your hearts. And it is true, what it is saying is just like a chemical reaction, just like the ancient alchemists were claimed to have been changing lead into gold, or attempting to change lead into gold, taking that which is fairly inexpensive and common and changing it into something that is much more rare and of much more value. Changing this useless life of mine into something that is very valuable and honorable to the Lord. And this is what all these stories about the ancient alchemists changing lead into gold were talking about. Having this change come about in your life. Now when we go into Isaiah 14:12, once again Jerome saw that it was talking about the son of the morning, or the son of the dawn, and once again put the Latin word for the planet Venus there, even though again, the Greek Septuagint that he was translating from says eosphoros. Once again, a light-bearing material. And instead of putting a light-bearing material there, he put the word for the planet Venus, which is Lucifer. And now the church has been taking this and the surrounding text and creating out of it an entirely separate entity which never existed, because the text was talking about the king of Babylon. They did not consult the Hebrew text when all this was done. And when the English translators now came along and came to this verse, rather than looking at the original Hebrew, which is what they claimed, if you open up King James Version, you'll see it says translated out of the original tongues, with all earlier transcriptions compared and revised. But that's not what they did. They just copied the Latin word Lucifer, letter for letter, right out of the Latin, put it right into the English text. So they have this teaching that they can hold up and scare people with about Lucifer. And it's entirely unbiblical and is not taught in the original Hebrew text. Let me pick this up in a third part.